like the nail in the coffin was what happened at that camp. I remain still like very convicted about, like, I believe that the way of Jesus is the way that I want to live.
Yeah.
And I believe that if we live in that way, like, that's the hope of the world.
Hey, Dropouts, it's Chelsea.
And it's Brandon, welcome.
And we're here with Courtney Gill. We're so excited to have Courtney here. She's amazing. She has taught us a ton about theology and Jesus and love and life. And she's been a huge blessing to both Brandon and I. And so it's a privilege to be in this beautiful space that is not the studio, but is in fact Coco's house, which...
But if you donate... we might have a studio like this.
We'll attach our Venmo.
Yeah, this is attached.
This is now a sponsored ad. Anyways, but
we've
yeah,
been friends for a long time. Like we've been friends through like most of our like pastoral ministry together.
Yep.
And that's been one of the best blessings of my experience in ministry is you guys as my friends.
Well, is the friendships that last when you leave the church, which is pretty much none. So what a blessing that somehow.
If you all leave, it lasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Is my experience.
So you know what? Here's a pro tip. If you're going to leave the church, which, you know, I hope, probably if you're listening
bring
to this,
someone down with you.
Bring somebody down with you, which quite literally is what everybody accuses me of doing, I think. But I'm pretty sure you both left before I did. So
I did.
It wasn't my fault. I'm just saying. Just leaving that there.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a little Two Truths and a Lie with you guys because we thought, what better way to open up a podcast with three former pastors than a stupid-ass game that we all used to do with our students. Right. So Two Truths and a Lie, I cannot go first because I am traumatized by not knowing anything about myself. So you guys somebody's got to start.
Okay,
I can do it.
Let's go.
I'm happy to go.
Oh, I'm nervous.
Okay. Why are you already laughing? I'm a bad liar, I think. Okay. I skipped a grade. I went to college for 5 years. I have been married for 13 years.
Okay, I know you've been married for 13 years. Right?
No, 11 and a half.
Oh.
I think you skipped a grade.
That's not how it works. That's your lie.
Oh, shoot.
You guys, this is the best. We couldn't be worse.
We don't know how to play.
At the most basic instructions.
Well, the problem is, I'm like listening, but I'm also trying to develop my
Okay, so now it's your turn.
Sure. Okay, cool.
And also, just for the record, it was pre-K that I skipped, but you're supposed to do pre-K.
Well, you skipped a grade.
So I skipped it. I passed the game.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, you did. Got that bag.
I can do this.
Okay.
I have participated in a 5K in California. I got cut from the 7th grade basketball team, the tryouts. And I was suspended for a day. Shoot.
That's definitely true. Wasn't that
true.
when you were little?
In the 9th grade.
Oh, I was thinking the lunch story.
No, that was me getting a scar on my face when I tripped and hit the desk.
Right. Okay. My bad.
So I was suspended in the 9th grade. I participated in a 5K in California, and then I got cut from the 7th grade basketball team.
Oh shit!
Maybe the 5K feels so specific, it feels like a lie.
I'm gonna go with basketball team.
Is the lie?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go 5K.
Those were the truth.
What?
I was suspended in the 1st grade for...
You motherfucker, sneaky ass.
Which is wild. I don't know if I've told that story on the podcast.
Sneaky.
But I did do a 5K in California.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that, I feel like.
Yeah.
Was it for Disney or something?
It started at like the Disney
Okay,
park,
yeah, I could.
So it was like worth it to participate. But I did like a run, jog, struggle type thing. No prep for it. And then I definitely got cut from the 7th grade tryouts for the basketball team.
Wow.
Like first day, not the second day.
Yeah.
It was like on site.
Yeah.
I like did a lap or two. I dwindled and they were like, he's done.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
Oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't think I have anything, but we can get started with the
For real.
They are.
Go work.
I'm trying. I'm just scared, you guys. I don't know what to do.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, please, because I don't know.
No, you don't have to lie anymore. We can just listen. Thank you.
Oh my god! Like I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. All right, I can't breathe.
She also starts being like no holds back type of personality, so like it's super easy.
Okay. All right. Oh, I'm scared. Okay, number 1. I don't have a belly button. Number 2. I have 3 aunts. And number 3, I have I had braces for 5 years.
I think it's the braces.
I think it's the braces too.
No, I don't think I have 3 hands. Do I have 3 hands?
That's not hard to
I
get
don't
you.
think so. No, I had braces for 5 years, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Isn't
There's at least
aren't
2
these
ants
shiners?
that I know of.
Dude, who? My Aunt Danielle.
Yeah.
Are the other uncles married? Or did you not
Oh,
count
Aunt
aunt-in-laws?
Oh, yeah, I guess
So what's it?
I do
I'm glad we could be here for this.
Oh,
This
oh
is
my
too
god, I'm
funny.
so
I actually
excited,
have
fan.
fans.
Holy shit. Open that back door. I'm just kidding. Wow. All right,
So-
well, I guess I
Sorry if you were an aunt that was not counting.
Trust me, they're not watching this podcast. Aunt Danielle, I was thinking of you, and you are probably watching. So,
I
Yay.
honestly was trying to think of the picture that you have
oh,
shown
dude.
where like you got like M&M's mixtape and like 50 cents
Oh,
mixtape
yeah.
for like your 8th
Yeah.
birthday
For
or
Christmas,
something.
I was holding M&M and 50-cent CDs when I went with braces and like oh,
I couldn't remember if they were braces or not. That was a detail I couldn't.
Yeah, oh yeah,
It
the
was
braces.
5
were-
years.
Yeah, it was forever. Yeah, and I had a
That's a
paddle
long time.
expander or headgear. I had like a lot of stuff.
Headgear?
Where you like
Yeah.
turn the
Oh.
key and
Oh yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Oh,
right here.
wow.
Kristen, please send us photos of the head.
But you know what? Headgear, by the time like I needed headgear, it just happened where you only had to wear it at night. Like that had just trained like a couple years
Oh,
before. But like literally before that, kids were wearing headgear to school.
You weren't looking like Darla from Finding Nemo or anything.
No, but man,
Yeah, it's a
I'm
lot.
so sorry if you had that experience though. We're deeply empathetic that it's sorry that happened to
Yeah,
you.
but send in a photo.
Yeah, please do.
Of
Please
you
do.
with your headgear.
So speaking of traumatizing, memories and headgear,
Headgear.
Courtney, you come from you had from what I remember, even before I met you, you came from ministry before. So I just kind of want to know, and you Christian college,
Right, you've been in ministry longer
Yeah.
than we were.
absolutely. So will you just kind of share some of your story with us?
Sure. I grew up going to church, kind of church adjacent, until I was in middle school. My family went to a really large Nazarene church at that time, which we all kind of come from that world in
Mhm.
some way. Went through high school, went to Olivet, which is a Nazarene college, was a ministry major there. And immediately after college, went into kind of full-time ministry. I was a nanny and doing full-time ministry for a while, and that was wild.
Yeah.
And ministry is way more exhausting than being a nanny.
Not
which is
surprising.
how it goes.
Mhm.
So did that in Illinois for a few years, came back, ended up working at the church I went to in high school for a couple years, was a youth pastor, got to meet you guys. And I left ministry a little over 3 years ago, kind of full-time
Wow.
vocational ministry, which
Can't
is
believe
crazy.
it's been that long. I know.
It was
Yeah.
like the COVID year, so in some ways it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
it was that long
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah,
and
it was the
still,
first
like-
camp after COVID.
Yeah.
And that was when right after that was when you left. So it's been doesn't feel like it's been that long.
Yeah,
sometimes.
because I left West Flint in October of 2020.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's been kind of a crazy couple of years since then, but that's kind of my history, I guess.
And you were also if you didn't know, and I wish we're gonna definitely have Courtney like sing us a little jingle or something. We've definitely talked about that before. Not right now, obviously, But her one of her most beautiful gifts, in my opinion, I absolutely love listening to her, and both Josh play, and is she was a worship pastor. Was that your first job out of college, or you just also did that with other ministries?
Yeah, so pretty much a church's dream is a couple who wants to be in ministry, who can sing and play instruments and do other stuff.
That's right.
So Josh and I were kind of like every church's ideal.
You were the catch-all.
Because they think they can pay you for one of you.
Yep.
The two of you adds up to one person.
Yeah, that's right.
So we were kind of the 2-for-1 deal at our first church, doing music and youth, and some admin. And then at the church I grew up in, it was like a part-time position, and we were just worship leaders there. But then at our last church, did youth, led worship, and did all of that together.
Yeah. So I feel like I really want to get into it, because I feel like, you know, we've mentioned Courtney multiple times on the podcast. And the last time we mentioned her, I think, was on the episode where we actually, we played a voicemail, when we were talking about camp and camp trauma. If you watched the church camp episodes, which you guys loved, you guys really ate those episodes up, which I apologize for your church camp trauma that you empathized with us. But in those episodes, we had a caller that called in and left a voicemail, and she talked all about this one service and yada yada yada, and the pastor that led that service had completely left ministry altogether after the situation, and but the student was expressing how much she loved this pastor and how much she meant to her, and it was Courtney. And so it's just kind of, now that we like have you in this space, I guess, I kind of just want to hear, like, not a full account, right? Because like, we don't need to, you know, we don't need to like want to jump off of like a bridge or something after this.
Who among us?
Exactly. But I do want to know, like, can you just kind of walk us through your dropout season of leaving, and just what started it, where you are now? Like, I just really want to get into this conversation.
The catalytic event, if you will.
Yeah. And it's hard because, you know, now, like 3 years removed from it, it feels like, oh my gosh, the signs were there for so long. Like, I can look back and I can go, oh, I remember Marco poloing Chelsea from the car when this board meeting happened. And
I know exactly which one it is.
Which one out of, 50?
Right.
So it's hard to kind of pinpoint like the final event, but kind of what precipitated me walking away from full-time ministry in a church, really like the nail in the coffin was what happened at that camp. I remain still like very convicted about, like, I believe that the way of Jesus is the way that I want to live. And I believe that if we live in that way, like, that's the hope of the world. Like, I still believe that. And I felt like every time I tried to preach that or teach that, I just kept getting this pushback of like, no, you're wrong. Like, what do you mean? Like, it felt so clear to me. So I ended up preaching at this camp. Chelsea was the director, asked me to come, and it was the first camp after COVID. And, I hadn't been in full-time ministry at the church for like half a year at that point. And she was like, what's on your heart to share with these students? And I'm like, well, the world is messed up, obviously. Like, we're in our first full year of COVID. At that point in time, I was like, the racial reckoning of our country is like going on and not yet fully acknowledged by the church. And I'm like, I know that these students have spent the better part of a year isolated, alone, trying to make sense of what's going on in the world. What could we give them that is a message of hope? And I'm like, that they can change the world. If they learn how to love and to embody love, they can change the world. And that's really what the messages were about. So we kind of crafted this whole week, and
it was called World Changers. Like, literally, we really, like, Courtney sent me what she was going to say each day. We made the theme. So it was really like, I guess I add that in just to say, like, it was very intentional. Nothing about what we did for this scammed or what Courtney prepared was flippant or ill thought of. It is very planned out, very intentional. But anyway,
because we were talking about it for I think 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember coming to you. It wasn't even like warm out yet.
Oh
I
yeah,
was still you know, and saying this is where I'm feeling like we need to go, and felt like it was really. I even found myself writing it, thinking, "Is this too simple?"
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is this too simple for a week of camp? Because it felt like such like, well, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
love others, give of yourself. You know, like yeah.
And
but wait, define others.
Exactly.
Again, please don't, because that's where it all. Anyway.
Yeah. And so, you know, and I also, like you guys, we love students, like we love teenagers, and I feel like we looked at them as like people with such curiosity about the world and such a better grip on like what it means to learn about people and hear their stories and accept people. And I'm like, this is going to be great. We're just going to encourage them to keep doing what they're doing and give them a great week so that they can go keep like being love in the world. And of course, you know, throughout these conversations, we end up talking about queer people. We end up talking about poor people, people with disabilities, because, you know, we're looking historically at our churches. Are we doing a good job of loving?
And including,
And it all kind of came to a head when I asked students to come up front and play this game of Red Rover, which I don't know if you guys know, and I know we've talked about it, you know, briefly on the podcast, but
we'll put a link to the YouTube. With the rules.
Okay. It's a very vicious game, right? But the whole premise is like these two teams link arms and you call somebody over, but as they're running, you're trying so hard not to let them through. And I'm like, this to me is the picture of what is happening in the church, where we're saying, yeah, we want you to know Jesus. We want you to be a part of this. But actually, we really don't want you here. Like, we're going to make it really hard for you to be involved. We're going to make it really hard for you to feel connected. And so I'm like, listen, we have to stop doing this game. We either love people. We either want them to, like, be part of us and experience. And we're not allowing them to be part of us. Like, God already says they're beloved. God already says they belong. So we're either going to take that seriously and stop playing games. Or, you know, and
it was beautiful. It felt so profound. And I had youth pastors after that had reached out to me and said, like, well, I've never thought of it that way. Like, it really was exactly how it sounds, is exactly how it was portrayed and exactly what the image was.
And so I think the mistake, if you can call it that, which I wouldn't, because, you know, 3 years later, almost 3 years later.
So so-called mistake.
Would still say the same thing.
Yeah.
I've thought about it because it created such a firestorm of parents reaching out, students stopping, you know, being part of the youth events. And it just became this whole, it took on a life of its own because I decided that I wasn't going to beat around the bush as like so many people and my peers in ministry had done. They're going to say we need to love and accept, but they're not going to say LGBTQIA plus people. They're not going to say people with economic like struggles. They're not going to say people with physical disabilities. They're not going to say, you know, we're going to be clear about it. So nobody is asking the question, because the reality is I'm looking at this room of students going, I know there are queer kids in this room. I know there are students with like physical disabilities in this room whose churches don't care to make their space accessible to them.
That's right.
I know there are students in this room who can't really afford to be here and stay here and are on scholarship. Like, and I don't want there to be any question in their minds of how beloved they are and how much they matter and how much they belong. So because we decided to name those things clearly, I think that's really where it kind of took on a life of its own.
Well, and I think it's interesting when I look back, now that I think about it, that the person who led the walkout of after Courtney spoke, and again, I said, you know, we're not going to get into all that, but the person who led the walkout was a straight white male. And
it always is. No offense.
But right,
No offense to
Brandon doesn't count, but like he is also straight.
No, that's right.
But the truth is like the one privileged individual that we didn't name, right? The name that Courtney said from the stage was, you know, and she referenced like what she said is that she was explaining the Red Rover game and saying like, you know, who are we inviting that we're not letting in? Like the LGBTQIA community, the community of disabilities, people of color. Like she wasn't slow. She wasn't like, she didn't sit on it. It wasn't like people that are queer, bisexual, lesbian. Like literally, this was like a quick, like, I feel like, and I don't want to defend it, but the reality is like, it was unfucking real. Yeah. Like the way that you said it was so like, it just flowed and it was quick. And you're like, wow, that's beautiful. Cause like, I haven't thought about maybe kids with disabilities in a couple months. Like I don't have any in my youth group. Why? Maybe I need it. Like even as a youth pastor in the back of the room, I was thinking like it was challenging me even as I was listening. Never once did I don't even know that I heard you say LGBTQ because I was like so wrapped up in listening to what she was saying. And it was that service ended. We went back to our hotel room. Corey and I shared a room. And roomies, literally, forever. We roomied together. And I think the first time we roomied together, I was like so scared because I'm like, oh my God, this girl doesn't seem like she likes me. We only met like one time.
She
remember they had to put the women
over 63, you know.
But she doesn't want to catch pneumonia.
Bro, I put that air on high. Courtney did get a cold every time we stayed together, but I mean,
it was worth it.
Yeah,
I would do it all again. Would room with you again.
I'm crying.
Chelsea also comes with snacks.
So, I was gonna say it's like the watermelon sour patch.
Yeah,
it's worth getting a cold.
Absolutely.
Peanut butter M&Ms.
Yeah. Yeah.
The memories are just like
bring your own blanket
and cozy socks and sweatpants and everything else. But I remember we went back to our hotel room and we were like laughing, talking, I don't know, whatever, just hanging out.
Because it seemed like a great night.
It was, it was great.
Youth pastors had reached out. Came with their students who weren't staying at the camp. And it was like youth pastors who never talked to me because for some reason, a lot of them never really talked to me. Yeah. Which was maybe because they thought I didn't like them too or whatever.
Yeah.
But just reaching out saying like, thank you for this service. Yeah. I remember one youth pastor was like, my students and I, the whole car ride home talked about the service. We've never had a conversation like that. And it's not to say like anything great about me. I think it was just that moment in time was impactful. Yeah. So we were excited. We were riding high. Yeah, absolutely. It felt great. Yep. Yeah. And I don't know. You had 2 more nights after that. You're like, what could happen? And it was the biggest attended. Yep. It was our highest night. And it was just really, we were really excited and encouraged, and it was just great. And, for 2 hours, it was great.
Literally. So about 2 hours go by and I don't know what we were doing. We were kind of just talking and I get a message on my phone and it was so shocking to me, but it was a parent from a student that was attending the services. And it was his mom. And she messaged me and said, hey, I just wondered what tonight's message was about. And that's not a weird question at all. But it was weird to ask 2 hours later without any context. It was just a little bit odd. And I'm like, well, your kid was there. Ask your kid. Like, what? So it's just kind of weird. So I explained to her what it was about. And I think at that point, we didn't have a clue why. Like, I don't even know if I told you she messaged me at first. Because I was literally like, it's not even, and we're just telling her what the service is about. Yeah. So then I told her what the service was about, and she messages back, and I should have looked I still have the message literally, but she messages back and says, oh, okay, that sounds wonderful. I was confused because my kid came back to the camper and told me that the message was about gay people. And I laugh now. Mm-hmm. But I will never forget what happened inside of me in that moment when I had realized there was nothing that occurred within that church service besides the mere mention of LGBTQ people just existing. Mm. And it had somebody so riled up that their mom messaged me. Mm-hmm. And that wanted night. To know, 2 hours
not
after
like
the service.
I'll catch him at breakfast.
Yep. Yeah. And I
it
remember
was the sense of urgency.
Yes.
I think that really shocked because it
And
was
then
one
tons
message and then it was like
a ton.
Really?
And unfortunately I think you were
working
working.
Jackie's family. Jackie, I still don't forget.
I was working
I was so
that
sad.
night, but then the next night it was Cedar Point. So I didn't
And
see
that's
any
fine,
of these
Jackie,
things
I'll
that
allow
go.
it.
Yeah.
But we'll allow it because we love
Exactly.
Jackie.
But also, like, I had just gotten canned from working as a pastor, so I'm out here getting a job at Domino's the first week of what I normally would have been off for.
Yep. Because the church was shit to Brandon.
Yeah,
so,
you know.
it's like, you know. But yeah, and then the messages started coming in, and you know, I think what's the hardest part, Courtney, about this story, still even now, is I remember Courtney and I went to the next day after the service. We had parents, coming up to, like, Courtney had a parent come up to her. I had like 3 parents come up to me, and they were like nasty. Nasty people. And they were just, and and the one lady, and I don't even care, like, they'll probably show this because they're going to know who it is the second I say this, but I'm in my villain era, as I told them earlier. It's like,
we've got some viewers. We know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. So you can send this to her family. But, you know, the one mom was like, we live in California, and there's already enough exposure of that kind of shit in California. We don't need to hear about the gay community here. And I remember her hand, and her husband, of course, is just like, you know, this white older man just standing next to her, just, you know. And she's just berating and I'm just looking at her, and I remember in my soul, I thought, I am literally seconds from scream. Like, I just remember it was the first time, and I'm literally not being dramatic. It was the first time in probably my 9 or so years of ministry at that point that I had ever thought, I'm going to lose my shit. Like, I'm going to start screaming. Like, I'm going to literally take this lady's head off. And not physically. I just meant, like, vocally, like, I am literally going to just go off. And so I remember getting out of that situation, like ending that conversation, not well, I might add, but getting out of that conversation, and then finding Courtney, and she was in really the same conversation with another group of people. And then we go around the corner, and who I thought was one of my great friends at the time, who his dad was a pastor at Brandon's first church, he is out around the corner talking to some of his family, talking shit about a service he never even attended, who I thought was like one of my good friends, who was a huge supporter of the youth camps and always really great to me. And like, we were pretty close, I would argue, at that time. And I'm just like, it felt like, it felt surreal.
Yeah. Even now when I think about everything that happened, and it was truly like over a couple days, but that last like 12 hours, it was
disbelief.
Yeah, and I was truly not like inhabiting my body at the time. I hadn't had a panic attack since I quit working at the church. And I remember walking into that little, I call it the sister act room, because it was basically just a closet that they would stick like a speaker in sometimes. It was just like the cinder block closet.
Yeah. Oh God.
And I remember trying to get in there because I could not, I felt like I was having a heart attack because of the things that these parents, specifically parents, were saying, accusations leveled at me that even people I know hate me, have never spoken to me that way.
Yeah, that's right. I agree.
And I was like, I truly didn't know what to make of it. And because I looked over my sermon notes again. I talked to these other youth pastors. In what world do I have like truly almost 10 youth pastors on our district say, it's one of my favorite camp services I've ever been to.
Yep.
And then on the other hand, I have over, 24 people livid, and they basically like want my head on a...
And putting letters on our district superintendent's door of his camper about it, taping letters to his door.
It was super dark.
It was so dark.
So
dark.
It's like, I just keep thinking of those like horrible Facebook images that.
Oh my God!
Of the like umbrella.
The quoting the sermon, the quoting scripture,
no,
and like
the rainbow.
God! Yeah.
The rainbow colored like flood that's coming down from the sky, and then there's this like
and Jesus is
white
like
male with his umbrella of the Holy Bible. It's like protecting his kids or whatever. Yeah. And why I'm thinking of that is like, you literally just said the existence of people in a minority group, like, and a supporting point. And that was enough for them to go, quick, get your umbrellas. Like,
yeah, literally. Yeah.
And they never even heard the sermon. And then another thing is, like, I just don't know anybody that is a male pastor that would have ever gotten all this.
And that's what's real crazy to me is how many camps did we all work on together?
Several.
I mean, 6 or 7 where we were like
7 summers.
Yeah.
3 each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that number of camps in the sermons we sat through.
Oh my God.
And I'm not trying to compare because I've done that and
I'll
it doesn't
compare.
lead anywhere. But like, you have a literal pastor bringing up a pastor with cancer, telling kids to pray for him and saying he's going to be healed. He's going to be healed.
Right.
And like, thankfully he is fine.
Yes.
But if he was not, the trauma and the damage.
And talking about his generational curse and his mom died of cancer, like devastating shit.
So we have that happen. And I don't know that we ever heard a parent complain. No. I don't know that a parent heard about it. Youth pastors were upset about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's what I'm saying. I was like, now we're in this situation where I feel like all the youth pastors were kind of understanding where I was coming from.
Yeah.
They were like vibing with it. And so to have this like huge blow up with families and students, and for the most part from people who never spoke to me.
Yeah.
People who had never had a conversation with me prior to that camp, and they could have.
Yeah.
And then people who, chose not to speak to me. Although I guess I'm kind of glad more people didn't talk to me because the ones who did, I still relive that.
What's wild is like also the taking their kids' word for it, which I think just to me tells me that it's the word they wanted to hear.
That's right.
Like, because I know most of those parents in those stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know those kids in those stories.
Yep, that's
because
right.
I pastored half of them.
Yep, that's right.
And I know they lied to their parents, and I know their parents knew that they have been lied to in their their history together.
Yep.
I know that that Californian, I know them enough to know.
Yep.
They know that their kids have been shifty.
Yep.
But instead of giving the guest speaker for the camp,
Absolutely.
the pastor, and the pastor that was the director,
absolutely,
like that adult level of I'll wait on the information until I've talked.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then I'll hear it.
There was...
But all of that was out the window. I think just because they heard the word that they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
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 Well, and nothing brings people together like hate, right? So they are all homophobic with no regrets on that. They're all homophobic. Every single one of them that complained, every single one of them that got up, you guys, if you're watching the podcast, you're homophobic. That's how it is. But,
they're fine with that.
Yeah, right. And you guys...
That's not offensive to them.
No, yeah, right,
like,
right.
Yes,
right, exactly. But in their
they're
homophobia...
living a biblical lifestyle.
Yeah.
In their homophobia,
They're 7 lives.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding, guys.
Literally. Well... But the point is, it was outrageous to see. But here's what I want to say about looking back. And I went to say this, but then I remembered about the letters on Mike's door, and we kind of the story just But
it's juicy.
it's the juiciest. But the thing that really got me about it is that the Nazarene church, the leadership, did nothing. Literally did nothing. Our superintendent at the time was Glenn Gardner. Is that right? Or no, it was Mike. It was Mike Kitsko. So our superintendent at the time, right, is this guy named Mike. And then we had his team, right, that was his assistant DS and the district secretary, things like that, their leadership team. Not one person, to my knowledge, for I think 6 months plus, not one person, and even after that, long after that, took any action on anything that happened to Courtney. They did nothing. And I want to be clear about this. I don't care how much you love the people that I'm naming right now. The Nazarene Church, the leadership on the Eastern Michigan District, did absolutely nothing to protect Courtney, to protect LGBTQ students, to protect me in my position. Nobody. Nobody. So it got even worse because then guess what happened? Fast forward, right? And then you've got the next summer later, this shit just erupts and hits the fan. about this one pastor, right, which we've referenced multiple this story, you know, and there's a case that's opened and an investigation is happening, and like, is this pastor going to lose his license for being like, you know, all these things that I guess I shouldn't mention because technically he didn't get his license taken yet or then, or I don't know. And it's just so surreal to me that the Nazarene church didn't do anything, and it got worse. Like the homophobia, the racism. Like I remember that next summer, the only time I've ever heard more from parents than I did from that is when I had Rashonda Womack, a Black female pastor, was the speaker. That was the next time I got the most pushback of anybody I've ever gotten from white male Nazarene pastors. I still have the emails. If you want to see them, reach out to me. Like, you know what I mean? But that's literally the only other time I've gotten as many complaints as I did with that service was when I had a Black female speaker. So don't tell me it's not about racism. Don't tell me it's not about homophobia and bigotry and whatever. But it honestly, nothing makes me more upset than the lack of leadership. And I think, Courtney, that's what really, because then you left. Because you did not leave the denomination before that camp. You just left full-time ministry.
Yeah.
You were still a Nazarene pastor.
Yeah, I was still licensed, and honestly, speaking at the camp, I was like really going through this, I don't know, I call it like a wilderness time, right? Where I'm like, I feel dead, I feel all these things, but I know there's still more in me to say. I know there's still more love in me to give. Yeah. And I'm gonna do this camp. Yeah. Right. And that happened, and I was like, maybe that was stupid, but I'm gonna hold out because I still believed in people. Yeah. You know, at that point. And then the months just went by. You had grace to trust that your leadership would, at the bare minimum, reach out to you. Right? Yeah. I assume. Yeah. That's kind of what you were thinking. I think that was the hardest part for me, was it wasn't a secret what had happened. No. I had tried to be very vulnerable with a few like key people in my life to let them know how difficult that time was for me, how much I was struggling, and to not get a text back, to not get a call, to not say, hey, can we meet up? That was the most difficult part of it, because I'm like, I can go through this stuff, but I felt like I had no skin on anymore. It was like, I'm just, you're roasted me out here, and they can do without me. And I didn't hear from anyone in leadership, and I didn't hear from some friends who are still in ministry. Actually, I still haven't personally been contacted by anybody. And I think there's a part of me, I feel like my journey that I'm on now is like, how do I let go of that bitterness? Not because it's wrong to feel bitterness, but because it is killing me. Absolutely, yeah. To hold on to. Yeah. How do I let go of that bitterness and recognize, like, I was on staff at churches where horrific things happened to people. And I ultimately ended up making a choice, like, to leave. That was like in line with my conscience, but I wasn't loud enough. No, I didn't defend them. I watched people suffer abuse at the hands of church leaders time and time again. And what I would hope to receive from my friends in those situations would be like forgiveness and grace and understanding. Yeah. Because when you're in it, it's so hard to see that you're not doing enough. That's true. But so right now I feel like my personal, and I don't think anyone else needs to do this, it's just where I've kind of ended up, is like, how do I navigate letting go of that bitterness and being able to forgive these people, because I've kind of been in their shoes with others. And I wish I wasn't. I wish that I had always used my voice as loud as possible. I wish I left as soon as I saw abuse and not, when it impacted me. Like, there are so many things I wish I could do differently to express my, I don't know, just my sorrow for how the church has mistreated people. And so I want to keep the door open to be surprised by, the hope of being able to forgive these people who I feel like did abandon me in that time. But it's hard.
I empathize because, like, I compare myself sometimes to Chelsea, who
That door is fucking shut.
Well, I always
sorry.
feel like
sorry, I'm not sorry.
there are things that like
kind of.
There are times where it's like, wow, this is wrong. We're all saying something, and I wish I could put pen to paper or put keys to keyboard and really say something to the people that I have influence over, the people that look up to me, or just the people that maybe they don't do any of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I wish I could be like you sometimes, where I'm like Chelsea can be so quick to post.
Don't finish that sentence. Exactly.
You're quick, but you're also like
an evil witch.
But I also always read your stuff, and I'm like, it's so eloquent. It's from the heart. I really wish I could quickly say what I say, but sometimes that feels so hard to really say, like, especially the personal part of these things of like, I'm seeing what's wrong. Sometimes they're very close family friends, and I'm like, it's hard. It's hard to say what I feel like I have to say, and so I really empathize with I might not have said it when I should have, or I might not have known what to say with what I was feeling, or if it was good for my mental health to say something or not. Like,
right. Well, and ultimately, like, the question for me since I walked away has come down to, like, I am a free person now, right? I am no longer underneath a denomination that tells me what I can and cannot say publicly. But the most important thing I have is my integrity. And, like, am I going to allow myself to take on the behaviors of these people that I disagree with most? Am I going to get caught? I don't really care what anybody else thinks about me, but within my spirit, like, am I going to be able to sleep at night with what I've written on social media, with what I have said publicly? Like,
absolutely. Because
I can't take that stuff back. Right. So for me, that's kind of my measure. And sometimes it does mean I don't say anything for a while. But I have that, like, peace within myself to know, but when I do say something, it's what I mean. And it's not for only my good. It really is to be for the good of you guys, for the good of the students that I love, for the good of people who are still in these, like, oppressive churches that do not care about them or their community. Like, how am I going to use what has happened for me and to me? I guess I think everything happens for us. How am I going to use what happened for me? Because it opened my eyes to the fact that I need to make a change. To help others and to try and make it right.
And I think, like, I think all of us have pieces of other people that we wish we could have, right? Like, I don't think that I'm alone in wishing that I could have Courtney's eloquence and grace. And I think I have the exact same integrity as Courtney and the exact same integrity as Brandon, because I know them and I know myself. But integrity is different than being slow to speak. Integrity is different than being patient, or, you know what I mean? Integrity doesn't mean you always that you never regret or wish you could do things a little differently. But I will say,
you not always say something.
Oh,
like, that's not.
That's fair.
I hope
that's fair. No. But I think I want to say, though, that, and I think I said this to you a couple of months ago, like, I am partly gay. Like, I am part of the LGBTQ community. And I remember the very first time I said that to somebody was Courtney. And I think when I said it out loud for the first time, it was Courtney. And I think that part of my identity is there is no open door for me, because I'm not a people group that you can ally with. I am the people group. Like, I am. And so when I posted something yesterday on social media, on my Instagram story and I was saying at the end of it, like, if you are still affiliated with the Nazarene Church or with a non-affirming church, which would be the Nazarene Church, then, like, you are not an ally. And that might not be something that either of you would say for multiple reasons. But for me, I'm like, I cannot any longer leave that door open. And I think of so many people I love that are still in the Nazarene church. I can picture them right now, like as I'm saying this. You're not an ally. You're just not. You're not. And I wasn't an ally to my own community. Right. Because if you are still sitting within the walls of an organization that is saying you are not created, you were not created that way. You're not God's image. The way you love is not God's image. You are not an ally. Right. And I think that it was different when I was unsure and I wasn't like vocal about my sexuality. Yeah. I think it was really, really, really easy for me to think I was an ally and like, this is my job and I am an ally, but I love being a pastor. But then once I was clear that was like who I was and I needed to be honest and I wanted to be free in that identity and I wanted to share that with people and share that part of me, because the biggest issue for me was that I knew that about myself, but I also knew God's love so true. And so I'm like, I need people to understand that like I am in that community and God still truly speaks to me and truly loves me. And I need gay people to hear that. I need straight people to hear that. Like I need everybody to hear that. Right. But more than anything, I need people that are still in that, who are still in a denomination that is dangerous and harmful and toxic in that theology. I can't be quiet about that. I don't know. But I think it's different because it's part of who I am. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think the journey that I see for myself is not one that I want for any person who is a member of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
I don't
you've said
see
that
it
before.
as your responsibility.
Yeah.
But for me, as I want to be an ally, I want to be clear about, what I believe is just and right. I see that as my responsibility because I am not part of marginalized group. Yeah. But as someone who I got a paycheck from a denomination that's homophobic, I got a paycheck from a denomination and from a church specifically that did not care to be ADA Disabilities Act compliant.
That's right.
Even when we have students who are in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
I think,
remember that phone call too. Literally.
That's what I look at and I go, yeah, I benefited from that system.
That's right.
Unfortunately.
Right.
But I did. Many people that I love and still love, even maybe against my better judgment.
Amen. Yeah.
People that I love are still a part of that system. And I know that even when I knew it was time to go, even when I was becoming more vocal about, some of these issues and I still held a license in the church, it was like I could not sleep.
Oh, yeah.
I could not sleep because I was seeing your face. I'm seeing students who have come out to me. I'm seeing like other pastors that I know who are trying to do the right thing. Like they need a job, they have kids, but they know that, they're not in line with this stuff. And I look at all of that and I know that it feels really, really hard to walk away.
Yeah.
And so I don't want, because I should have walked away sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, I don't need anybody else to do this, but for me, I want to be a person that can hold the door open and say like, it doesn't matter when you make that choice. I would love for you to make it now. Would have loved for you to make it 2 years ago.
Amen.
Would have loved, but I should have made it, 5 years before I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so I want to still be a person who can say like, but at least you have found a way to be in integrity now. You can move forward now. What does that look like?
But does that get harder for you, Courtney? Because for me, I was like that too for a long time. But in this last year, as more has transpired within the Nazarene community specifically, as ministers who are affirming have lost their license, or they've said something affirming they've lost their license, as certain things have kind of happened, as we've watched other pastors be like bullied over, like as we've kind of seen it get worse, because for me it gets harder. So I'm wondering, like, as you believe that and hold that like integrity and that like stance, I would say, I don't know, not stance, but that like, I don't know, does that get harder and harder to have tolerance for as you watch some of the things unfold and then you're seeing them stay in it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think it just really comes down to me. And like I'm saying, like, this is all just how I have to process it, and how for my personal, like, well-being, for me to be true to myself and like to be the most integrated I can be. The things I got in trouble for preaching were like, you are made in God's image.
That's right.
You are beloved of God. Doesn't matter what you've done. There's nothing you can do to make God love you less. There's nothing you can do to make God love you more. If that is all true, and if I really meant it when I'm looking at the students who are queer,
that's right.
and when I'm looking at the students, you know, like, the same has to be true for these people.
That's right.
That I most disagree with, that I have a hard time loving.
Yeah.
For them, it is hard for them to look at the LGBTQ community and say you belong. For me, it's these people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? It's ministers who profit off of fear mongering. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want them to belong.
Yeah, right.
But man, if I believed anything that I preached.
Well, they belong somewhere. Maybe just not in a Nazarene church preaching.
Sure, they shouldn't be leaders, but like, am I going to close the door on an opportunity for them to grow? Like, the three of us wouldn't be sitting here together if we hadn't taken these, like, gone through these really dark things, found a way to come out of them, found a way to be true, found a way to, you know what I mean? Like,
that are outside, that in all of those, the different, like, events that happened in our, if this is what you're saying, Courtney, all of the different events that happened in our personal growth, a lot of those I can't take credit for.
Right.
So I'm here being able to experience freedom, painful freedom,
right,
costly freedom, but like
at
least freedom to be able to be fully me.
Yeah.
But it's all based on happenstance of the right people saying the right things, and I would say God's hand moving in these situations. So I get kind of what both of you guys are saying, but I more so struggle, like you, Courtney, to say, like, I have to believe that in their own timing, they might come to find this to be true too. So, like, giving the grace in the meantime, finding that.
And to be clear, do I think people who are abusive should be leaders in any capacity? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Do I think that you should be able to hold personal beliefs that impact the literal lives of other people? No, I don't.
Yeah.
Right. But man, I would like you to think differently. Right. I would like you to see the world differently.
Yeah.
I would love to see a change.
Yeah.
And if I am able to somehow, in the way I use my voice, which is not as loud as some people might want it to be, or as frequent as some people might want it to be, if I'm able to make any kind of, like, move the needle a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to be able to do that. And I can say that because I'm coming from a place of privilege. Like, I'm free to do what I want. I'm not in that denomination. I'm a straight white married lady.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can do, that felt weird to say.
I know. I'm like, wow. Very vanilla for someone that's so cool.
Amazing. I am very.
Jack Harlow. I mean,
Jack and
I'd kiss him anyway.
Oh,
he's so cute.
I mean, that's the thing. He looks like Mr. Tumnus from.
It's just like little boppity boy.
Your heroes, Courtney, are the funniest.
Oh my God! Well,
so, I don't know, guys.
I think this has been amazing. If you've been tracking with us for this long, like, we love you guys for being a part of this conversation. I know there are a lot of people that this was so sacred to me, and Brandon, I know you'll probably feel the same way, but this was so sacred to me because there are so many former students and so many current friends or pastors or people that have maybe not, like, asked us for this conversation, but have been desperate. It's almost like I don't know if closure is the right word, but it's like they've wanted this conversation too. And they're listening to the podcast and they're sharing their stories and they're referencing this camp and they're referencing Courtney, or, and I just feel like as such, this moment, this camp moment for all of us, I think was really such a tipping point of realizing how unsafe and how dangerous a denomination could be that we thought held a stance, you know, when they wrap it up in a pretty bow, they tell you we are welcoming but not affirming. That's what they say. And I think we all bought into that a little bit. Like, what do you mean? Red Rover, gay people, come over. LGBTQI, come over. Like, and we'll embrace you and we'll love you. You can't serve communion, but you're welcome. We're just not affirming, right? I think we all really let ourselves, and it's not just LGBTQ. That's my personal, but it's like people with disabilities, people of color. I mean, people with, like you said, we were thinking of, you know, the Little Lambs organization out of the Flint area. That helps people that are low income, or you know, I think even homelessness and stuff. Dawn does a ton for them. So we were thinking, because she had spoken like the day before at that camp, so we were thinking of way more than just the queer community. However, it was like that moment where we realized, like, this is such an unsafe place.
Yeah, it's tough.
But
and it's hard. I think you watch this group kind of show who they really are time and time again.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to believe it.
Dude.
Right? Because, like, baked into all of this is such a deep love.
Oh,
like,
such a deep and amazing relationships.
Yes. Like, I still, like, every now and then we'll get these wounds that kind of crack open.
Absolutely.
Like, the loss of these people in my life
Absolutely.
that I love so much. And you just kind of watch them time after time show you who they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you watch this denomination like double down on these choices, and you watch individual churches double down on their choices, and you just go like, man, I really hoped we'd be past this.
I really wish this would be different.
Because if we're telling the truth, and you guys can cut out any of this that you want to, but like, I thought 6 years ago that by now,
we'd be
the
affirming.
Church of the Nazarene would be affirming.
Absolutely, me too.
Because
people told
every
me that
pastor
like
that I talked to
was affirming.
Affirming, wanted to see the Church of the Nazarene.
I bet your pastor's affirming if you're watching, probably.
But maybe not.
You might want to ask.
Not anymore. That 2020 did something to people.
It really did, and I think that's, you know, at the heart of it. I think that's why I see, for me personally, from a position of privilege, thank God for the grace to help me see things as they really were, and to not be inundated with these messages from these leaders who wanted to use the events of that year to like turn us against one another, right? Like, that was all grace that allowed us to get through that time and come out where we did. And unfortunately, like, so many people were not that lucky. I really look at it like that. Like, whoever's speaking into you, whoever has your ear, they're really going to do something to the trajectory of your life. And I just am disappointed and disheartened that leaders are able to continue to get away with that.
There is a it's like a vibe. I don't know why I've seen them a ton, and it's really about like your boyfriend or girlfriend or your partner, and it's like, if they show who they are, believe them. Have you seen those videos? And I've seen them on my TikTok. Like, they'll randomly pop up, and it's so funny because I think every time I see one of those, I'm like, that's the church for me. Like, and I think that's my prayer for you guys. I think it's probably all of our prayer for you guys, is that if you're finding yourself in a space where and I have even students I know that are watching this right now that messaged me a week ago saying that they're not sure if they should stay in the Nazarene church. They don't know what to do. And because of this, one of these issues we mentioned today. And I guess the only advice I could give you that's not biased, right? That's not like, you know, super judgmental or from my experience, the only like maybe godly piece of advice that I feel like God would give me permission to share with someone that's as young as like a 15-year-old student would be, if they show you who they are, please believe them, because there are beautiful and safe spaces and freedom to be exactly who God's created you to be and living in exactly God's call for your life, that are not in these toxic and abusive and hurtful spaces. And when they show you who they are, oh my God, believe them.
When they show you who they are, believe them.
That's our new jingle. You're welcome.
That could be a second.
You're welcome. Yep. And then we'll share what they show.
You promised a jingle.
I didn't know if you had like keyboard warrior jingle memorized.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be now.
We love you you guys so much. Courtney, we love you. This has been such a guest.
It really has.
Not just all the food and the hospitality and the neutral tones and the peace, but the conversation has been amazing. We love you so much.
Guys, I love you too.
Love you all. Thanks for doing this.
Bye, dropouts.
Hi, my name is Natalie. Thank you for listening to Courtney's episode of the Religious Dropouts. I've had the honor of calling Courtney my bestie for the last 7-ish years, and I truly do not know what my life would look like without her. She is one of the funniest, most intelligent, and wise people I have ever come across in my life, and I'm so glad that you were able to get a glimpse into that on this week's episode. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Emily. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Religious Dropouts. This episode is so special to me because Courtney is not only my friend, but she's my role model and has taught me how to be a strong woman and how to love people genuinely. She has a beautiful heart as well as singing voice, and she gives great advice. I'm so glad you were able to hear from her on this episode. Be sure to check us out on social media and head over to our brand new website, religioussdropouts.com, for all things dropout related.